He never imagined the past could walk back into his life so boldly. On the night Adrian Hale stood before 1,000 flashing cameras at a charity gala, he believed he had finally escaped every trace of the life he left behind, especially the woman who once stood by him when he had nothing. But fate has a way of returning what you try hardest to forget, and tonight something in the air felt unsettling, like a warning he could not read. As applause echoed, Adrian's smile looked perfect to the world, yet inside, a quiet fear tugged at him. For years, he had buried the memory of Lena, the wife he walked away from during his ruthless climb to wealth. He convinced himself that she was holding him back, that success required sacrifice, that he could build a brighter future without her. He believed distance could erase guilt, but guilt grows stronger in silence. The moment he stepped off stage, a familiar presence stirred something deep within him, a feeling he had not allowed himself to feel in years. At first he thought it was just stress or exhaustion. But when he turned toward the entrance, time seemed to stop. A woman stood in the glow of the hall lights, calm, graceful, and unforgettable. He recognized the eyes before anything else. Eyes that once held dreams for both of them. Eyes he once promised to protect. And then he saw what froze him completely. A small child leaning against her shoulder, sleeping peacefully. A child with curls that looked painfully familiar. The hall noise faded. His heartbeat grew loud. Something inside him whispered that this moment would change everything. Adrian couldn't move. For a moment he wondered if his mind was playing tricks on him. He had spent years convincing himself that Lena had moved on, that she had built a quiet life far from the noise of his empire. But as she stepped closer, carrying that small sleeping child, reality struck with a force he wasn't prepared for. Memories erupted, late-night talks in their tiny apartment, her laughter echoing through narrow hallways, the promise they once made to face every storm together. All of it came crashing down, reminding him of everything he abandoned in his hunger for success. He fought the urge to look away, but he couldn't. It was as if the universe demanded he stand still and face what he ran from. Lena's expression was calm, almost unreadable, but her eyes held a depth he had never seen before. They were no longer the eyes of the girl who used to wait for him with warm meals and quiet dreams. These were the eyes of a woman who had survived without him, who had grown stronger in his absence. And that frightened him more than anything. The child stirred slightly, his tiny fingers curling into Lena's dress. Adrian felt something tighten in his chest, a strange mix of fear, disbelief, and something dangerously close to regret. He wondered if she would walk past him, treating him like a stranger. But she didn't. She stopped just a few steps away, her voice steady as she spoke his name, a name he hadn't heard in that tone for years. "Adrian, you vanished without a backward glance," she said softly, not accusing, just stating the truth. The words cut deeper because she didn't say them with anger. She said them with acceptance. And acceptance hurt more than blame. Before he could reply, she shifted the child gently, and the little face came into view. Adrian's breath caught. The resemblance was unmistakable. His world tilted, and a cold realization ran through him. Everything he thought he had built, everything he believed made him powerful, suddenly felt small. He had walked away from a life he didn't know he would one day long to reclaim. And now, standing in front of Lena and the child who carried his features, he understood. This moment was only the beginning of the truth he had tried to outrun. Adrian tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. Every apology he had rehearsed in lonely hotel rooms felt useless now. How do you apologize for disappearing from someone's entire world? Lena didn't rush him. She simply watched, holding the child close, as if shielding him from whatever storm Adrian might bring. That quiet strength unsettled him. She used to lean on him, trust him, believe he would always choose her. Now she stood like someone who needed nothing from him, not even answers. And that was the first time in years he felt truly powerless. He finally managed to whisper, "Is he?" But the question felt too heavy to finish. Lena nodded once, calm, almost gentle, as if she had prepared for this moment. "Yes, Adrian. He is yours." The truth he feared stood right in front of him. His knees felt weak. He wanted to reach out, to touch the child's tiny hand, but guilt held him back. What right did he have? He had left before he even knew this life existed. Before he could gather himself, the child blinked awake, confused by the bright lights. His eyes, so similar to Adrian's, looked up at Lena, then curiously at the stranger staring at him with trembling breath. That simple gaze struck Adrian harder than any headline or scandal ever could. The child didn't know who he was. And yet, Adrian felt an inexplicable pull, a connection that both softened and shattered him. Lena adjusted her hold and stepped back, creating a small distance. I didn't come here to reopen wounds, she said quietly. I only came to return something important that belonged to me, my peace. But her voice faltered slightly, hinting that this moment was far from over. Adrian felt panic tightening inside him as Lena's words settled between them. Peace. The very thing he had never found even with all the success he chased. He searched her face, hoping to read what she truly meant, but she had become unreadable, calm on the surface, yet carrying storms he had never bothered to see. The child rested quietly again, unaware that his small presence had just shaken the foundation of Adrian's carefully built world. For the first time in years, Adrian felt the sharp weight of loneliness, the kind that no mansion, no applause, no luxury could soften. And that weight grew heavier when Lena turned slightly as if preparing to walk away. Something inside him snapped. Lena, please don't go, he said, surprising even himself. His voice cracked, exposing a vulnerability he never allowed anyone to hear. Lena paused, her back still half-turned. She wasn't cruel, she wasn't trying to hurt him. But she was done being a shadow in his story. Adrian, she said softly, you left long before I did. Those simple words cut deeper than anger ever could. He stepped forward instinctively, terrified of losing them again before he even understood what he had lost. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know about him. Lena finally turned back, meeting his eyes with a truth he wasn't ready for. Would it have changed anything? She asked. And that question struck him like cold wind. Would he have stayed? Would he have chosen love over ambition? He didn't know. And the fact that he didn't know scared him more than her absence. The noise of the gala faded as emotions tightened the space around them. The child reached out suddenly, tiny fingers stretching curiously toward Adrian, unaware of the complicated history tying the adults together. Adrian froze, his heart pounding. That small gesture, so innocent, so trusting, felt like a lifeline he didn't deserve, yet desperately needed. Lena watched silently, her expression softening just a little. For the first time, Adrian realized this moment wasn't about the past. It was about what he would choose now. And the answer would define everything that followed. Adrian stared at the tiny hand reaching toward him, and something inside him broke open, quietly, painfully, undeniably. He had spent years building walls around his heart, telling himself he didn't need anyone, convincing himself that success demanded feelings be left behind. But that little hand, small and trusting, slipped through every wall he had ever built. He hesitated, afraid to move, afraid to take something so delicate into hands that had only held power, not love. The child blinked up at him again, curious, innocent, unaware of the storm swirling between two adults who once shared the same dreams. Adrian finally lifted his hand slightly, unsure, yet drawn by a force stronger than pride. And when those small fingers wrapped gently around his, a warmth rushed through him that he hadn't felt in years. Lena watched, and for the first time that night, a flicker of emotion crossed her face, something between surprise and sorrow. She had prepared herself for anger, regret, even blame, but she hadn't prepared for this softness in him. Adrian swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everything he had missed. First steps. First words. First smiles. A whole life he could never get back. I wasn't there, he whispered, barely audible, as if admitting it aloud would make the truth sharper. Lena nodded slowly. You weren't, she replied, not with bitterness but with honesty. And honesty hurt more than resentment. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. How old is he? What's his name? Did he ever ask about me? But fear held him back. What if the answers confirmed how deeply he had failed them both? The child tugged lightly at Adrian's finger, unaware of the emotions he had stirred. Adrian crouched slightly, meeting the child's curious eyes. Oh, Adrian, he murmured, feeling ridiculous introducing himself to someone who should have known him from the beginning. The child didn't understand the meaning, but he smiled. Simple, pure, forgiving. Lena looked away for a moment as if the sight was too much to bear. Adrian exhaled shakily, realizing this moment was offering him something he never expected. A chance. But chances come with choices, and this time the choice wouldn't be about business, reputation, or wealth. It would be about whether he finally had the courage to face the man he had become, and the man he needed to be. The question lingered in the air, waiting to be answered. Was he ready to step into a life he once abandoned? Or would he let them slip away again, this time forever? Adrian felt the weight of that unspoken question pressing hard against his chest. He had never been afraid of contracts, risks, or billion-dollar decisions, but this moment shook him in a way nothing in his empire ever had. Lena shifted slightly, adjusting the child on her hip, preparing to walk away. That single movement sent a jolt of panic through him. He realized then that this wasn't just a reunion. This was a crossroads. If he let her leave now, it wouldn't just be the end of a conversation. It would be the end of any chance to rewrite the story he had broken years ago. Lena, wait. His voice cracked again, raw, unfiltered, stripped of every polished layer he used to hide behind. She paused but didn't turn immediately. He could see the strength in her posture, the strength of someone who learned to survive without him. I know I failed you, Adrian continued, taking a step closer, but please, let me try to understand him. To understand you. To make things right, even if it's only in small ways. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't asking for a second chance. He was simply asking not to lose the opportunity to try. Lena finally turned, her eyes searching his face with a mixture of caution and disbelief. She had seen Adrian in newspapers, on magazine covers, at events where he sparkled with charm. But she had never seen this version of him, unguarded and trembling. Trying now doesn't erase the past, she said softly. Her voice was steady, but her fingers gently brushing the child's back showed her heart was not as calm as her words. I'm not here to punish you. I just learned to move forward. Her words pierced him, but in a strange way they also freed him. He wasn't being asked to undo the past, he was being challenged to shape the future. He looked down at the child, who was watching both adults with innocent curiosity. Please, Adrian whispered, let me be part of his world, even if it's small. I don't want to be a stranger he meets once and forgets. For the first time that night, Lena hesitated, not out of anger but out of the fear of hoping again. The silence between them stretched, fragile, full of possibilities. Finally she sighed gently and said, his name is Noah. The name struck him like a warm light in a dark room. Noah. His son. A life he had never held, never guided, never celebrated. Noah, Adrian repeated, letting the name settle in his heart. The child reached toward him again, trusting him without history. And Lena didn't pull him away. That small permission felt like a doorway opening. Adrian didn't know where this path would lead. He didn't know how long it would take to earn even a fraction of the trust he had once broken. But as he walked beside Lena and Noah, leaving the bright hall behind them, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, something worth more than success, applause, or luxury. A beginning. A chance to rebuild not a fortune but a family.